All right, let's talk some Sam Darnold. Listen, it's kind of been beaten to death a little bit, but at the same time, I wanted to do, I've been doing this series just before the preseason starts, talking about certain quarterbacks and what their numbers say about them and what they have to improve upon. And to me, I think that Sam Darnold is a perfect candidate for something like this because, let's be honest, things did not go too well last year, so let's really get into the tape and see what went wrong and what was outside of his control and what was inside of his control and what can we learn from the Jets offense as a whole last year. So first, right here, bit of an interesting stat. You do see a jump, and a pretty sizable jump, 11 points from when he, this is in passer rating, from when he's not being blitzed to when he is being blitzed. So, that's, I feel like, interesting. So why is his passer rating so much better when he is blitzed? Well, that's something we'll talk about when we get into the film study, but just so you know numbers, that's where it is now. This is how well he did in terms of passer rating further down the field. So, deep is 20 plus yards, medium 20 to 10, short 10 to 0, behind the line of scrimmage speaks for itself. And you see that short and behind the line of scrimmage, he was fine in. I mean, again, high 80s. That's not spectacular, but given where he is on the field, that's actually, I would say, probably around league average, maybe even, that's solid. You'll take that for sure. But typically what you want is to see the numbers to continue to go up the further you get down the field. Instead, it's an abysmal 57.6 and a not much better 64.7 when you get further up. So clearly, it's not so much the 10 yards and in, it's more so the deeper stuff that really didn't go well for the Jets last year. And of course, passer rating is not just an individual stat, it is a team stat. So what was his fault? What was other players' fault? Well, we'll talk about that. And finally, something like this, his kept clean versus under pressure numbers, you do see a sizable jump, and that's good. I mean, you want someone, if they have struggled, at least statistically, typically what can kind of create some of that struggle is if there's a big difference between under pressure and kept clean. You want a quarterback who's going to be good when he's kept clean. I'm not sure if I would call an 81.7 passer rating good when he's kept clean, but at least it's better than the very bad 55.6, which is basically as low as it gets, while I would say isn't a fluke. Some guys will get like a 45 passer rating under pressure, but I imagine that's a bit of luck and it'll probably revert to at least like a 55. So his is not great. This is still in the area that you can control because, again, there is some luck involved in passer rating under pressure. This is kind of in that bubble where I would say you can control it, and I could expect a 55.6 passer rating next year, but I wouldn't be shocked if it goes up to 65 next year or maybe even 70 next year. Who knows? It's a statistic with a lot of variance, and it seems like, the guy who's had the best season out of players currently in the NFL was Ben Roethlisberger, who was like a career 65 passer rating under pressure, and then one year had a 120 passer rating under pressure. So that just, I made a whole video on it. There's a lot of variance there, which is good. You want to see a player who's underperform in an area where there's variance, because then you hope that he'll, it's a fluke as opposed to he just sucks. So, okay, film time. This is an interesting play. So this is going to talk about a couple of things that we've brought up, which is why I'm bringing it up right here. So this is it's a cover zero blitz, and in fact, the Jets have 2 players blocking, so there's only 3 players really impacting the field other than guys trying to get to Sam Darnold or trying to avoid players getting to Sam Darnold. Other than that, it is 3-on-3 football, which is kind of fun. So right when this play starts, for some reason, the broadcast circled the play clock. Not sure why that happened, but Darnold was able to get the throw off. The pressure never really got there, so that's maybe part of why Darnold has had more success when he was getting blitzed. To me, this is probably the biggest reason, was the fact that, well, the Jets, let's be honest, did not have a very good receiving core last year. It was one of the worst in football. And so if you could create situations where guys were, having more one-on-one matchups without, help anywhere, well, that can make things easier. So that could be a part of it. Also, Darnold takes this throw deep, so we're going to get a deep ball as well, which we've seen Darnold, struggle with statistically. But one thing that's interesting is that it's never been a criticism of Darnold that, he has a bad deep ball. That's not something that I really hear. It might be said among Jets circles because they follow Darnold a lot closer than the national media would, but it's not a common criticism you hear of Darnold. Typically, you just hear the bad decisions. And as you see, this is going to be thrown well, and it's caught for a big gain on 3rd down and 9. So now we got to talk about this play, because this is my theory for why you see a big drop-off when it gets further down the field, is because of stuff like this, where really I think that, we talk about the bad decisions Darnold will make. Well, oftentimes, those bad decisions are down the field, and this is a good example. So what's going to happen on this play is it's a cover 1 man play. It's a cover 1 blitz, so there's only a single safety deep. It's a deep route. The decision itself pre-snap, I totally get. It makes sense. Give your receiver a chance, sure. Plenty of logic here. But once this play starts, it's not really going to be open at all. And again, let's be honest, I don't care what Miami corner it is and what Jet receiver it is, it's probably going to be a bit bad matchup. So if you're going to make this throw, you have to really throw it high, make your receiver make a tough catch, play a little bit careful here. And the reality is, it's maybe a decision you shouldn't make in general, especially when the corner who's playing defense right here is Xavier Howard, who he's been an interception machine this season, so maybe don't try him like this. And as you see, Howard doesn't get the interception, but comes really close. And probably a decision he shouldn't have made. And again, you hope that with the Panthers, they have better receivers, and he just won't be put in that bad of situations because his matchups will be better. Again, every quarterback makes better decisions when their receivers are getting more open. That's just how football works. But something like this is another one where it's going to be man coverage, and watch what's going to happen. So there's going to be some pretty quick pressure. Darnold, runs out of it, does a pretty solid job there. He is a good athlete. There's no denying that. And at this point, there's a halfback on a linebacker. Again, I don't hate this decision necessarily to make, but watch what's going to happen. This one is just going to fall incomplete. It's not really even close. And let's even take out the should we criticize Darnold, should we not criticize Darnold. Let's worry about that less. Let's just talk about the reality of what is true, is that if you do that with the Jets offense, you're not going to have a very good statistical year, especially with balls down the field, because they don't have guys who can win 50-50 balls. So again, we can sit here and argue maybe Darnold shouldn't have made these throws. The flip side, though, is that, well, if no one's open, what should you do? So it's a very fair point, and I don't know how much I want to criticize him for this. I really don't. I'm not sure if I criticize him at all. This could just be an explanation as opposed to a critique, quite frankly. Now, I want to talk about this play because if we're going to talk about, when he's blitzed, I mentioned that at the beginning of the film study portion of this video, but there is an asterisk I should put on it, which is this play. It's a 3rd down and 3. It's going to be a cover 1 blitz. And one area where I have a little bit of, I have to say, well, this is kind of, it's just an asterisk next to the stat, is, well, your passer rating might go up when you're blitzed. The flip side is, if you get sacked, well, that doesn't affect your passer rating. Personally, I kind of think it should, quite frankly. I think that, a sack matters just as much as some of this other stuff. But regardless, you're going to watch the player, Miami player who I've circled right here, and watch Darnold's reaction to it. Look, there basically is no reaction. He never realized that at the line that there was going to be a sack, and it was tough. He got through completely untouched. The blitz was not picked up, and even another Miami player came over untouched to, get there. So again, not criticizing Darnold, but just saying it was still a good strategy sometimes to blitz the Jets just because you would get sacks as opposed to, maybe even a 5-yard gain or something like that. Technically, the sack is going to not affect your passer rating, whereas maybe like a 3-yard gain here, if there wasn't a blitz, would have affected his passer rating, but also helps the team more. So that's just the thing I had to point out as well. One last play before I go. This is, if you're a Panthers fan, this is the hope. It's man coverage. You see a receiver running over the middle, and watch what happens. Darnold is going to look to a different read first, but then he's going to get off, go to a second read. He has time, makes the throw down the field. It's not even wide open, but it felt like when Darnold had some time, he was able to make some throws. Now, maybe you could argue this one's a bit outside. It ends up not being caught, but that's also a great example, I think, of, the receiving core was not good for the Jets last year, and it hurts more when you have to rely on a receiver to make more difficult throws, which could also which could also be a factor in why some of those plays down the field didn't work as well. So yeah, I find all that stuff very interesting. It's just some added context in this whole Sam Darnold situation, which is very unique. Kind of, what I've always said and what I continue to maintain about this is I would have liked to see them have a backup plan. That's all. I don't hate this move to get Darnold. I actually like the move. Take a chance on a guy who has some potential and it hasn't worked out in a bad situation. If you can get a franchise quarterback, you'll feel great about it. You won't worry about, man, maybe we could have only given up, a little bit less to get him. Who cares? Because if you get the franchise quarterback, you get it. I would have liked to see them have a plan B similar to, the Tennessee Titans where they had Mariota for another year. They also added Ryan Tannehill as a backup option. Tannehill worked really well for them. So something like that. But again, I've beaten that to death a little bit. Won't talk about it anymore. It's interesting. And I could see, it's not hard for me to envision a world where Sam Darnold does, improve a lot when he's in a better situation. I certainly think he'll improve some. Quite frankly, it's hard to get a lot worse than last year, but it's just such a unique scenario. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.